This? All right, wonderful. I'm Samira Bakhtiar. If I haven't met you, I am the general manager of our media, entertainment, games, and sports organization, and it's my privilege to host you here tonight for Cocktails and Conversations. For those of you who have not been to a Cocktails and Conversations event before, it's hosted graciously by our AWS communications organization, and this is the second time we're putting it on. So it's meant for you, members of the press who have come far and wide to be able to enjoy food, drinks, and then also have an exclusive opportunity to hear from two very innovative customers who I'm going to bring here on the stage in a moment. But before I do that, I wanted to give you a bit of a background about AWS's engagement in media and entertainment more broadly. Over the last 15 years, we've been working with some of the largest media and entertainment customers in the world, inclusive of Netflix, Comcast, Disney, Paramount, Fox, News Corp, just to name a few. Hundreds of millions, if not over 1 billion consumers receive their content through the services provided from the AWS cloud. And we continue to provide new tools that help our customers create content, distribute that content, monetize that content, and what you'll hear tonight, create interactive experiences with that content, with the tools that we provide. Specifically, we have over 9 purpose-built services dedicated to media. We also have 11 solution areas, and we have over 500 independent software vendors that we partner with, inclusive of Vue, who has graciously opened their venue here tonight for us and is hosting us. And, right? Round of applause for them. In addition to the work we're doing with media and entertainment, AWS is also partnering with sports organizations around the world to be able to reimagine the way that sports are watched, played, and managed. We are leveraging our solutions to help teams, the leagues, the broadcasters, as well as the partners that serve the sports industry think differently about how they can innovate sports, how they can optimize athlete performance, as well as how they can enhance that fan experience. And you're going to hear more about that in just a few minutes. And to name drop a few of the amazing customers that we've been working with in this capacity in the sports arena, I wanted to just make mention of the work that we've been doing with the NFL, with Next Gen F1, with their F1 Insight solutions, as well as NHL's Edge IQ, and lastly, Bundesliga's Match Facts. And if that wasn't enough, we also have tonight with us Scott Gutterman from the PGA Tour, who's going to be sharing about how they have leveraged AWS services, specifically our new product, Amazon Bedrock, alongside of their proprietary data to be able to create a generative AI chat assistant that is helping their customers engage with PGA Tour in a very, very interesting way. So with that, I would like to invite Scott Gutterman up on stage to join me. Scott is the SVP of Digital Operations of the PGA Tour.
Thank you, Samira.
Thank you, Scott. So earlier this year, AWS announced a new generative AI innovation center called GAIC. It's a new program that helps customers successfully build and deploy generative AI solutions, and the PGA Tour was one of the first customers that leveraged the center to be able to build out their PGA Tour generative AI virtual assistant. So Scott, you think we can give the audience a first look?
Yeah, let's take a look at it. Let's roll the video, and I'll talk about what we've built. So working with the Generative AI Lab, about 8 months ago, we got into Bedrock and started looking at and thinking about how do we begin to work with generative AI? I mean, that's the first question everybody's asking themselves right now. So with generative AI for us, is like, how do we engage our fans? How do we create services for our players? And we are starting where most everybody else is starting. We're starting with a chatbot and going into Bedrock and beginning to work with Anthropic's Claude 2.0 model and taking our data. So what you're seeing here is the beginning of that proof of concept. We started with a simple proof of concept, which was just querying data out of our media guides, which 30 years of media guides and PDFs. We had to extract that data, get it ready for querying, and make it available to the chatbot. But then we quickly expanded the proof of concept to be multimodal. We wanted to bring other forms of content in as part of the queries. So what you're beginning to see here is video content that's coming in. So the latest version of the proof of concept, which we just demoed at an event yesterday, involves data from 2005 to 2023 from our ShotLink data from all of our events. That's our competition data. It then also has access to 160,000 hours of our video from our media asset management system, and then 30 plus years of media guides that came from PDFs. And so the teams are really working very closely with the Gen AI Lab to understand how do we prepare our data, how do we prepare our content so that there's access available to create these sorts of experiences. So this is just the very beginning of where we're headed.
I love that, and that's a perfect segue to the next question I have, which is, in order to be able to provide an incredible outcome like this, you have to be in a position to be able to manage your data effectively, especially as you embark on a generative AI journey. Can you talk a little bit about how the PGA Tour prepared their data to be able to build a solution like this?
Sure. So for us, and this is something I can't really stress how much we're really learning in these 8 months, is you can have kind of this vision, you can have these plans, but you really need to take a look. I mean, it was mentioned in the keynote, towards the end of the keynote today, you really need to take a look at the vast differences in the sources that you have for your data. For us, it was, again, video content. In this case, it's structured data from our ShotLink system. And so, structured data is easy to access. We've got that in, databases, and it's all ready to go. But our media guides, everything had to be extracted out of our media guide. So we are using tools like Amazon Kendra or Athena to create queries, to index the documents so that we can begin to actually access that. So when somebody builds a prompt, when somebody creates a prompt, that becomes a SQL query. The index is gathered for that particular topic. So if it's looking at a drive by Tony Finau, or in this case by Charlie Hall from the Women's U.S. Open, that is all gathered. Then it's passed back through again the third-party model, again in this case Claude, to come back with that natural language response. So it's not a small feat to prepare your organization to be able to use these tools. The nice thing about it is, I think once you do it and you get that practice down and you make those tools available, you have a very valuable set of assets that you can continue to build on.
Yeah, certainly. And as we look at generative AI tools, we already know that it has the ability to be able to enhance the fan experience. We're seeing that here right now in the demonstration behind us. But also, it has the opportunity to be able to enhance business and operations processes for your employees, as well as for the business and the players. So can you talk a little bit about how you foresee leveraging Amazon Bedrock to be able to provide for those experiences for fans, for your people, as well as for the players?
Sure. And I'll start with the players, because ultimately we at the PGA Tour work for the players. We are a player-led organization. So what services can we provide to our players? So one of the things that we're talking about is creating a player bot. We're about to rebuild our player app. Rory McIlroy walks off the course. The bot knows enough about how Rory McIlroy plays the Tour Championship at East Lake Country Club, won the FedEx Cup there twice, and be able to tell Rory, look, this is how you played today. This is where your good tendencies were. This is where your bad tendencies were. This is maybe how you need to prepare for the next round, or maybe the things to work on for the next round. So a player bot that would not only take into account his competition data, but probably work with his teacher, his coaches, to really help him in the short term prepare for that next round. So that's one way for us to do that for our players.
Awesome. And then what about for your people, employees?
So for our employees are actually getting very excited about what you're seeing here, because we are hiring new employees all the time. They don't have the depth and the knowledge of the history of the PGA Tour. So when they're writing a story about Rory McIlroy and they want to compare it to Tiger Woods winning the FedEx Cup, in the past they've turned to having to go to our analysts, have the analysts run queries, think about they aren't even thinking about prompts. They're thinking about they're writers, so they're comparing, how did Tiger play this course versus, they may even ask that general question. So they can't really articulate what they're going after or have access to it. And so now for our staff, this will allow them to go in and ask that question and really get context back. The more that we train on the models, the more we train on the data, they'll understand how to compare two players. And then the last thing that we're really looking at is our TV partners. So you have Jim Nantz and Trevor Immelman, who do commentary on CBS. What we want to be able to give them is a console where they say, you know what, today they're following these 5 players. After every shot, they may want 5 talking points generated out of our vast set of content, so that when they're telling you how well Rory has just hit this shot into the 18th hole at the Tour Championship, they immediately can look at this console, choose 2 or 3 talking points, to bring them into their commentary and be able to say, oh, well, he's made this shot 10% of the time, and by the way, let's go look at the last time he made this shot on the same green.
Very enhancing to the experience for both players and your team members alike. So one of the things I find so impressive about the PGA story here is you were able to go from idea to implementation several orders magnitude faster than what you would usually see. It's quite impressive. So what advice would you give to other businesses out there who are looking to experiment with generative AI?
So I think right now you really need to be prepared about what you want to accomplish. And for us, it was really how do we, where do we want to go and what are the experiences that we want to create, but what's going to guide you? So for us, it needs to be consistency, really actually accuracy, number one, because we are a sports organization, our stats are fact, they have to come back accurate every single time. We have to be able to tell people how many times Tiger Woods has won a major. It's 15 times, some models come back and tell you it's 8, some models come back and tell you it's 21. So accuracy is absolutely first for us. Consistency, making sure we're getting the same thing back again and again. So it's our other guidepost. And then the other guideposts, again, some of what we heard about this morning is toxicity and bias, right? Because in order to I think what you don't see a lot of chatbots rolling out because if you're working with third-party models, at least for the time being, and I know this is why it was a focus this morning, you can't guarantee, you don't want to hurt your brand. That's actually probably one of our biggest guideposts is don't hurt the brand. So we want to make sure that if we put a PGA Tour chatbot out for external use, we know that the responses are going to be appropriate.
I love that. Accuracy, and I think some of the announcements that came from Adam Slipsky's keynote this morning relative to guardrails also will help with that. So great insight. So speaking about Adam and AWS, beyond this project, AWS has been the official cloud provider of the tour since 2021, and we've been very honored to work with you to form and assist on how golf is created, distributed, monetized, and as you've seen here tonight, experienced. So can you share how the relationship with AWS continues to evolve from your perspective?
Sure. So for us, our actual relationship before the official sponsorship started with AWS in 2012 when we moved into the cloud, when we brought the digital businesses in-house. And it really built from there, which is what led in 2021 to the partnership because we were talking with the teams that we work with, like, look at everything we've accomplished. Let's create an environment where we can go even further and talk about what we're doing with each other. So we're pretty excited about it. The thing that I'm excited about, particularly in the Gen AI stuff, is I'm learning a lot from the AWS team every single day. They're bringing some fantastic experts into the Gen AI space that are teaching us about generative AI, even machine learning, how to approach it, how to be creative with it, and vice versa. We're helping to kind of form, like, how do you commercialize what we're doing? How do we create experiences out of it? And this is something that's very important right now to AWS is these are all great tools, but you want to create great experiences, whether that's an internal experience for our players or our staff or something for our fans. And so between the two goals for both organizations, I think we're pretty committed to creating something really special on these new platforms.
And we see it. I think this is one of the beautiful elements of being able to have a phenomenal partner like you, being able to work backwards from these audacious problems and create new innovation as we work collectively together has been very rewarding, and it's helping to advance the industry. And I think based off of what you've been doing and what we've been doing together, we continue to see live cloud production as well as the use of data to, in combination with generative AI, to be able to fuel new monetization opportunities as well as new interactive experiences that will enhance that fan experience. So, Scott, thank you for this. I really appreciate it, and I want to thank you for joining me here on stage.
Thank you.
And I think I need another mic because it keeps cutting. All right, cool. So I got a thumbs up. All right, awesome. So with that, Scott, I'm going to thank you, and I think we're going to transition now to Wonder Dynamics. Let's give PGA Tour a round of applause. All right. So awesome. So at this point, take the other mic. Oh, here we go. Sorry, Nicola, I'm going to give you the bad one. All right, wonderful. So this is our opportunity to introduce our next customer, which is Wonder Dynamics. Founded in 2017 by entrepreneur and filmmaker Nikola Todorovic, alongside of actor Ty Sheridan, who you may remember from the X-Men series as well as Ready Player One. Wonder Dynamics uses their proprietary AI software called Wonder Studio to use artificial intelligence and machine learning to automatically animate, light, compose CG characters and live action scenes. So before I bring them up on stage, I'm going to let you take a look. Let's go ahead and roll that video.
They say all great stories start with a sense of wonder. And what if bringing those stories to life wasn't limited by our resources, but only by our imagination? Welcome to Wonder Studio, where making movies with CGI is as simple as selecting your actor and assigning a character. The system uses AI to track the actor's performance across cuts and automatically animates, lights, and composes the CG character directly into the scene. Whether it's one shot or a full sequence, Wonder Studio analyzes and captures everything from body motion, lighting, compositing, camera motion, and it even tracks the actor's facial performance. All the artist needs is a camera. Filmmaking is a medium of creativity and collaboration between artists. There's no AI that can replace that. Wonder Studio was built to empower those artists while still keeping the existing 3D process in mind. Alongside the rendered results, Wonder Studio gives you the ability to export the individual layers you need to deliver your final visual effects shot. Whether it's lighting, camera, or animation, you can maintain full control and make detailed adjustments in 3D space. From the paintbrush, to the typewriter, to the camera, tools have always been an extension of the artist, a means to help our voices be heard. With Wonder Studio, we hope the world hears yours.
Cue applause. Awesome. So now it's my opportunity and my privilege to welcome Nicola and Gretchen Libby to the stage. I haven't yet introduced Gretchen, so let me do so. Gretchen Libby is our Director of Visual Computing here at AWS. And alongside of Nicola, they will be discussing AI's role in the future of visual effects. Before joining AWS, Gretchen spent 24 years at a very small company called Industrial Light and Magic, part of Lucasfilms, where she was part of some of the largest blockbusters in movie history. She's worked on Transformers, Avengers, Jurassic World, Star Wars, Attack of the Clones, Ready Player One, Iron Man, just to name a few. So I'm definitely on stage with some royalty, and I'm very excited about this next section. Thanks for joining me. All right, so my first question is for you, Nicola. Could you start by sharing a bit more about Wonder Dynamics and how you and Ty Sheridan came up with the idea for the company?
Yeah, absolutely. First, I'm super glad to be here with Gretchen. I always geek out when she talks about her film experience. But Ty and I really started this many years ago. We started writing films together. And every time we wrote something, it would usually be a sci-fi or fantasy. And it would cost $100 million to make, which was not realistic for us. So it really started with a frustration we had of how difficult it is to make something you write, turn it into a screen. And how we started is, we started looking at self-driving car technology and robotics really early on, about 2017. And we really figured out is, these models, when they look at, through the lens of a camera, it's all about understanding the world around you. And the more you understand it, the more you can kind of manipulate it. So that was the first kind of base how we started. And then we, selfishly, we were first building it for ourselves. We wanted to just make our own movies. And as we started building, we realized, we called it visual AI at the time. There was no generative AI term. Then we realized, okay, this is bigger than us. Let's actually turn it into a platform.
I love that. And you're in a unique position alongside of Ty, where you're actors and you're filmmakers, and now you're co-founders of this generative AI visual effects company. Given the concerns that have been raised in Hollywood, could you, around specifically the use of AI, could you talk about your view on the use of AI tools like Wonder Studio in the filmmaking process?
Yeah, I think the concerns are really valid. Obviously, Ty being an actor, we're very cautious not to, as you saw in a demo here, we mostly drive characters that don't exist in real world. So we don't generate human that don't exist. It was a tough one because every time we talk to investors, that was the first thing they ask you if you're doing. So we had to fight it for a while. And so I think for us it was important to build tools alongside artists and to accelerate artists. And not to say, okay, we're just going to generate an entire movie. We don't need anybody. So we were very cautious about building it. The results you get are only as good as the footage you feed it. So it's your cinematographer, your director, and then they're only as good as the models you build in a sense of like 3D models that you're driving. So for us, it was really, really important to work with artists to build these things alongside them.
I think the responsible use and working with the industry to see how these types of tools are going to be used is going to be paramount, and I love that perspective. So Gretchen, I'd like to come to you. You've seen the complexity of CG-assisted production and motion capture on some of the biggest productions in history. Can you explain a bit to the audience about the traditional use of CG character creation and how AI tools like this will improve the process for VFX in the future? Is that the bad mic? Here, take this one.
So, as Samira said, I have a lot of experience in the traditional visual effects, and we weren't using AI, in making movies like the Terminator franchise, where Arnold Schwarzenegger had pieces of his head missing and replaced by a robot inside, or Iron Man, where Robert Downey Jr. wore some things, but mostly we replaced him with a full CG suit. Those are hand tracked. So you saw the actor in the plate. We would take that material, and an artist would spend days and sometimes weeks and even over a month or two, depending on the complexity and the motion of the shot, because you have to have a very tight match move to put something on top of the actor. We also used motion capture in movies like Ready Player One, and Ty, your co-founder, was in that project. Motion capture volumes, actors perform in there with nothing around them but a blue screen or a green screen. Now virtual production, like we have here at View Studios, is changing that, but it's still costly and time consuming to do motion capture. And so, what Nicola's company is doing is really, giving the artist a tool to accelerate what they're doing in that space, and then let the final touches be done by the artist. So I think it's another tool in the toolbox. And the film industry has evolved, technologically over time. There's a SciTech Academy Award every year, or multiple, because of advancements in filmmaking. And this I see as another perfect example.
We're sharing. Well, thank you. I think that's an important perspective for the audience to have, so you can understand how the use of some of these AI tools can really enhance the development experience. So knowing where we're coming from really informs where we're going. And so, Nicola, when we were sitting and prepping for this, you're talking a bit about the work that Wonder Dynamics is doing with some of the indie studios, but I want to brag for a minute about the work that you're doing with the Russo Brothers, who have directed films like The Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame, among many other films. They are going to be using Wonder Dynamics tools for an upcoming project in 2024 called The Electric State, starring Millie Bobby Brown, Chris Pratt, and my favorite, Stanley Tucci, if you like Devil Wears Prada, or Devil Wears Prada. Now, while I know you can't share any details on that film specifically, can you talk about some of the benefits of the production that they're seeing, leveraging the Wonder Dynamic tools?
No, absolutely. I think for us, this is before we launched Wonder Studio. We did this project with the Russos, and it really helped us. We wanted to test it at the highest level, and we said, okay, if this is going to work, we really have to work with the biggest filmmakers we can and make sure it works, because the whole point is to really give this in hands of indie filmmakers. And I think for us, what was really helpful with working with the Russos is, sometimes directors have a really hard time editing something with visual effects that are non-existent. So you have to kind of visualize so much of the process, and then it's really hard to turn into a vendor like ILM and say, here, do this, right? And you lose so much time and money. So it's really accelerating the process. And what really helped us there is we brought artists internally that worked on big movies like Avatar or Guardians of the Galaxy, and we asked them, don't worry about AI, just ignore the AI for a second, just tell us what information do you need, because we have about 25 ML models that are running on AWS that we had to build, a lot of them from scratch. And so we're pulling so much information from the video, and the artist really helped us kind of navigate, okay, if AI can get me about 60-70% there, which is a realistic picture right now, because there's this overhype that the AI is already there, that we're just going to text away our entire movie, which I don't think is true. And I don't think it will be true, because the filmmaking process is super collaborative, and sometimes the director is finding their shots. We're talking about passes. Sometimes you have a first pass of a shot, and then you turn it over, and then director, pass number 20, will say, can you actually move a camera a little bit this way, or change this? So you need like control to the smallest detail. So that really helped us. Working with the Russos really helped us, because these artists would tell us, give me this data, I need this element, or I need this pass to get to my final shot. Because our philosophy was, okay, if AI cannot get us all the way there, it's our job to provide the data to people and artists that can get to that 30% difference or 40% different. And that really is where the creative input gets the most. Because the filmmaking process, especially in visual effects, a lot of it is really monotone work. A lot of artists get really frustrated with that, because you get in this industry thinking, I'm going to be super creative, everybody's going to ask me about my opinion, and then you are one out of thousands that's just sitting and doing very, very boring work, right? So for us, we want to speed up that process so the artist can focus on the really creative choices there.
Well, what stands out for me with that answer is how you're really enabling these organizations to not focus on undifferentiated heavy lifting. You're allowing them to leverage your tools to get to the creative, like the good stuff, way faster. I think the also element that that stands out for me is you're democratizing these tools. So it's incredible that the Russo Brothers and big production films can leverage your tools, but you're also working with indie filmmakers and providing them with these tool sets, which really democratizes the creative process for them as well. So that's fantastic. So Gretchen, my next question is for you, kind of building off of what we were having with Nicola. Can you talk a bit about how you are discussing the use of these AI tools in the VFX projects specifically with media and entertainment customers?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like most businesses today, everybody is looking for a way to use AI to create more efficiencies and, get more either creativity to the screen or money to the bottom line or both and all of the above. And the visual effects industry, as Nicola mentioned, and animation, anytime, there's certain IP involved, right now there's still a lot of debate, and you've heard, of late. And so, what we're seeing from our customers is they're focusing more on process, scheduling, bidding, things that can, make those processes faster. That also helps with their customers, the studios, when they can turn a bid around or say, yes, we can do this project because we have enough people to do it in this time frame. So and a lot of coding, efforts to try to increase the efficiency of rendering and other technological, mechanisms that they have to employ to make these movies. I mean, I think it's important to remember, as I said, it's a tool. The AI is a tool, and I think AI, it should be employed in any way possible when used responsibly. We saw Adam Silipsky make some announcements this morning. I think it's really exciting for businesses of all kinds, and I think the film industry will ultimately benefit greatly once they find the right spots for the use of this technology.
Well, that's a perfect segue to the future. Does it make a difference if it's a romantic comedy or an action film? VFX is in all of these movies. And with a lot of pent-up demand and the content creation process, going to 2024, we only expect more films and more productions to start up. No signs of slowing down. So I've got a question for both of you, which is, as you look towards the future, how do you see the use of AI really transforming the way that VFX are used in the future?
Okay. Well, again, I think back to Nicola saying it's a good first pass. Really, it's going to help artists, really focus on the creativity. And there are some really banal tasks that need to get done for a movie to actually make it to the screen: rotoscoping, match moving or tracking, compositing. And then you can let the artists, like animators or people who are doing beautiful effects, really shine and come to light and not be held back so much by, the things, the foundational tasks that need to happen. So I feel like, not only with, imagery that's going to be coming from AI, but also process process improvements will really, hopefully, elevate the consumer experience and what we're going to see on screen.
Yeah, I agree. I would just add, for us, the mission was always, how do we enable indie filmmakers to do what traditionally only studios can do, right? We were really big on accessibility. One of the reasons we built this as a, Chris was here from Wonder, we built it as a cloud solution, on AWS and a web browser, just because we are big believers that storytelling is extremely important. And young audience, they tend to consume visually heavy storytelling. They do not like slow indie filmmaking, but indie filmmaking tends to be slow because it's expensive, so you can't get cut every 2 seconds, right? And you cannot, as an indie filmmaker, I worked in a lot of indie films where we just cannot use visual effects at all. So this kind of is where I see the future being, what excites me. First, it's going to be super global. I think right now we're still really location-based. You still need to move to LA, climb your way up, right? I went through that. I mean, I moved to this country, one-way ticket, no money in my pockets whatsoever, and with a dream of working in Hollywood and making movies. And then kind of reality sets in really fast to realize how gatekeep this industry is, unfortunately. And it makes sense why. It's extremely expensive to make this content. So I see AI as a very positive step forward, where we first will hear voices from all around the world. But I think second, I would say, if we can, like, you have a studio that makes a movie for $250 million. They have to get 500, 600 to get their money back. They're not going to risk making 2001 Space Odyssey today. We would not be able to make 2001 these days, right? So the way I see it, if we make it cheaper, we'll get voices or globally to do it, but we'll also have these stories that are Marvel visual, but A24, really grounded stories. And that's what will get people to watch it. And then we can really tackle stories that matter, and get storytellers discovered all around the world.
That really resonated with me. I'm a huge proponent on wanting to include more voices and have a more inclusive, diverse, and equitable avenue, both for tech as well as media and entertainment. And so to hear your perspective on how AI can provide the tool sets to allow for creatives from all over the world to be able to share their stories and work dynamically, it has a real positive derivative to the communities that we serve. And not to mention sustainability benefits, right, of not having to fly people from all over the world, right, to work on productions, as well as accessibility. Like, you think about people who can't, get to some of these facilities, they can now leverage these via the cloud. It's really groundbreaking. So thank you. That was an incredible session, and I want to just kind of turn the energy back here to the room, and let's give one round of applause for Wonder Dynamics, alongside of Gretchen Libby, the legend, and Scott Gutterman from the PGA Tour. So I sincerely hope that you've enjoyed tonight's cocktails and conversations. Hopefully you heard some stories that resonated, and there's going to be members of the AWS team that'll be